Welcome back to Studio 5. From the youngest child to the oldest adult, we all experience anxieties and daily fears. Feeling anxious never feels good, so how can we help our children deal with those uncomfortable situations? Studio 5 contributor Dr. Matt Townsend has focused in on 5 ways to coach your child through their anxieties and fears. First, you don't really love that word anxiety when we talk about children.
Yuck! And I think it's just it's a weird word because it's so clinical. And it's, you're diagnosed with anxiety.
Sure.
And yet every human on earth feels anxiety, right? So anxiety is just your body's way of kicking in your fight and flight, tendencies so that you can actually take advantage of certain opportunities, certain experiences, and not be eaten by a dragon.
That's helpful.
So it's both sides.
So until we're officially dealing with that diagnosis, which is serious for a lot of families, a lot of people, we use the word worry.
And even if my child were diagnosed, I have a child that has been diagnosed with anxiety, but we still call it worry.
Do you?
Just simply because worry is an easier word, I think, to get a teen, a kid, a child around. And I'll show you why when we go through it. Some of it is just simply because it's natural. Let's not make them think that they're crazy, that they're extreme, that they're weird, all of these terms that get thrown around. And instead, let's just recognize you're normal, you have a lot of worry, and sometimes you get more worried than you probably should.
So it's the parents taking it down a notch and making it seem normal for the kids.
Bring it down. Part of that we call normalizing in my industry. We want to normalize the behavior. We want to make them feel like this is just a normal thing. And if we make sure that they feel like it's normal to feel a little amped up about something. If you have a big test, you should be a little worried or amped up about it. Again, it's nature's way to make sure that you do a good job on that test.
Is it okay as a parent then to maybe discuss the negative sides of worry? If they're an over-worrier, it's holding them back.
Yeah, now, interesting thing is I'm a big believer that you don't always tell them everything that could go wrong or they'll just start doing it. So instead, what I might say is there's benefits to it. There's reasons why we have it. It makes us better. Most of the professional athletes probably feel a little worried before they go compete. And that little bit of worry, and then I would ask questions. What do you think it does? Like when you get worried before your game, talk about that. What does that look like? And then I want you to also discuss with your kids about how sometimes our worries misfire. Sometimes we're using it when we don't need it. We're actually being worried when we don't need it, but it feels the same to us. And I would even then get into that, where sometimes we have people, like even some people that some people you care about, that they feel more worried than they actually need to.
So you're connecting them to people in their life who are going through those same emotions.
That's exactly right. So we just noticed that worry is normal. It's a part of fighting and flighting and getting through life.
Right.
And sometimes we don't need it as much as we use it.
Right.
And we might even talk about how they specifically do that and get very real with them that this is normal. This is what it feels like. When you're worried, you feel tense. You'll feel your heart rate go up a little bit. Your stomach might bother you, and help them get those signs. Then what I want them to do is I want to start pointing out specifically people around them, family, friends, neighbors, parents, who else in the family is experiencing this, and then give them examples for how they can get through it.
So using those people, those family members as good examples. Here's how Aunt Martha got through this situation.
That's right. Mom has it this way. Dad does it this way. When Dad gets anxious and worried, Dad starts to get more angry. When Mom gets anxious and worried, she shuts down and eats cookies. Or whatever.
Don't we all?
It doesn't matter.
Don't we all? I remember
matter.
the first time my dad actually said, "Oh, I'm feeling a little nervous about this." And it was almost a weird, vulnerable feeling as a child to recognize your parents expressing those same emotions too.
And the powerful thing about it too is now all of a sudden they have role models. I'd even go to certain stars, certain movie stars. Like my son plays a lot of music, so I tie him a lot of times to musicians that say that they have a little anxiety or worry. So then all of a sudden they have a role model, somebody that they can kind of follow and show that, look, these people can go do concerts with 100,000 people in the space, and yet you can do the same thing if you want to learn how to do it.
So drawing those parallels. I think a lot of times we discuss worry as this ambiguous emotion that's out there and you're a victim to it, but I like how you pointed out the physical triggers that you can be experiencing, so drawing children's attention to that.
And help them figure out, I mean, how many times do you have a new person come on the show and you can tell they're experiencing worry?
Yes.
And if you can start to figure out how you feel it and how you notice it and how it impacts your body, then you can start to detect it earlier. And then the big key to all of this is don't just go with the story they tell. When a kid doesn't want to go to school, he'll tell you a big story about how the teacher's rude and she has too much homework and she has favorites and teachers shouldn't have favorites. And then you're going to go with that person on that story when this is probably not even about a teacher. You might notice it's just his worry kicking in. And what I try to do is then I try to point out, son, instead of getting into the big story and needing to go talk to the teacher and do all this stuff, I'd rather just get down to the fact, son, it sounds like your worry is kicking in. Do you think this is just your worry, or we could say your anxiety if you're using that, and let them start to detect it. One time with my son, he didn't want to go to a recital. He fought me on every part of going to this recital. He would not go, he would not go. And I finally just said, son, I don't think this is about the recital. I don't think this is about who's going to be there. I don't think about anything, it's anything you're talking about. I think this is your worry. Is this your worry kicking in? And he got very real with me, and he's like, yeah, this is my worry. Once we've kind of identified that it's not about what we're talking about, it's about the worry, then I only ask one question. And this is the number one thing you got to teach your kids. Okay, son, now that you have this worry, how are you going to handle it? Now it's a choice. Now you know you've got it. We still have a recital. How are we going to handle the emotion and the worries?
And what were the solutions you came up in that situation?
With him, it's just kind of like, we did some cognitive work where I'm like, so what is that going to look like? So when it's all done and you've nailed it in front of that recital and everything went well, how do you think you're going to feel there? Do you think anybody else here is sitting there thinking that Tanner's a worry wart and not knowing how to do this? And I just get him to start thinking, what happened the last time you were worried about performing and then you just performed? How did that go? And we talk about examples about how well that went. And all of these things are cognitive ways to kind of overrun your body's natural feeling and emotion.
So you have the benefit of approaching this not only as a parent, but as a professional.
Yeah.
So for other parents out there, how do they know when to bring in outside help?
You know, it's important to know when you start to see the kid break down, when you see that you're not having the power or the influence, when they're not performing the way they should, when they're withdrawing too much, when they're having attacks and it's starting to get more stressful, it's probably a good time to get a professional. And a therapist, there's a ton of great work you can get on this. So you don't always have to go right to medicine. You can a lot of times just get some coaching and some skills. And I would highly suggest just any therapist that can handle anxiety and or depression or kind of mood issues, I'd get right to them. They'll coach you through it. One thing to also remember, sometimes it's the most anxious parent that has the least success with the most anxious child. So one of my rules is always choose the least anxious parent and let them do the coaching. Because sometimes the most anxious one is going to bring their anxiety to the process.
That makes so much sense.
And so if it's not working at first, try the least anxious parent, see if they can't do some coaching. And remember, don't get caught up into the story. Yeah. Instead, just ask one question. Okay, son, how are you going to handle your worry right now? And then build a plan, teach them how to breathe. There's a bunch of skills. You can get online and just get skills about how to get some of these emotions out of you. There's a great book that's free of charge. I have nothing to do with this company, but I had him on a show once, a radio show, and he did such a great job. Go to the website, playingwithanxiety.com. They have a free ebook that you can download and read with your kid, and it goes all through this process and how to start asking the questions about how.
Fantastic. Matt, thank you so much. Not only great advice for parents and for families, you have marriage workshops coming up.
Yes, marriage workshops, and we give a discount. We're going to give 20% off on all of our classes, all of our workshops. If you just go to the website, matttownsend.com, or give us a call at our company, 801-747-2121. 801-747-2121.
Did you see the grin stretch across my face?
And tell them you heard me on Studio 5, and they'll give you the discount.
Good job. You passed the phone number test. Thank you so much.